This is Matt O'Hearn with SpaceCoastDaily.com and the Friday Night Locker Room. We're back for another week. After Week 8, we'll be talking about this week's matchups and talking about some of the games we watched. Steve's voice is a little out of it this week. He came down with some laryngitis, and by the end of the show, Orville and I's voices may be gone from yelling at each other. And if Orville's in a bad mood, it may just be because he predicted that Viera would lose and that Notre Dame would win. So kind of in a slump this week, but he was pretty close on both predictions.
Real close.
Real close. So anyway, we'll start off, gentlemen, with the game of the week. The Friday Night Locker Room will be traveling down to Heritage. Hopefully this time you guys are able to stay away from the storm, so to speak. The initial game was postponed due to poor weather. Orville, why don't you break down this matchup for us?
Well, first off, you have to understand, Matt, with Steve Wilson going to Heritage, it's an overnight trip. So we'll have to pack a bag, leave early on Friday. We won't make it back until late Saturday afternoon. So that's the first thing that gets us excited about going to Heritage. Like you said, Heritage was our opener of the 2014 FHSAA season, and we were not able to do it. We sat in the press box for 2 hours playing different games, waiting for him to make a decision. We finally had to leave there with no game. So, but this week, South Fork will travel to Heritage, and Heritage took off last week to get prepared for this game. I don't really think they needed 7 days to do that. They're setting atop the district along with Bayside. I think Heritage will get another district win this week. South Fork will have a long ride home.
Right, and Steve, we've talked about Gaines. He's a special player at Heritage. Do you expect him to have another good week?
Yeah, I think he'll do well, but they're not a one-man show anymore with Mills and King at running back along with Gaines. I think they have the three top running backs in the county. Not saying that one of those three is the best, but there's not a team in the county that has three better running backs than those guys. They're playing a South Fork team that's not a bad football team. They've won more games than they've lost. It's a team that Heritage cannot afford to overlook because the Panthers have Bayside the following week. But I think they'll do well Friday night. They know what they have to do because their big showdown is going to be a week from Friday. But Heritage is going to win. I don't know that it's going to be big because South Fork only beat Bayside 21-6 a few weeks ago. So they're not a bad team. But look for Heritage to win by 2 or 3 touchdowns.
All right, moving right along. The biggest game featuring two local teams will be Merritt Island and Palm Bay. A lot of district implications on the line with this one, Orville. Sometimes I feel like looking at these matchups, I feel like we're looking at the old college football BCS format where, 2 or 3 scenarios can unfold from a single game. Even when these teams weren't in the same district, this clash is always one of the most heavily anticipated in the area just due to the proud history of both these respective programs. Orville, it seems like Merritt Island seems to be finally turning the corner, and seems like McLean's really flipped the light switch over there, and things seem to be turning around for this Mustangs team. What's your take on this game?
Well, the first thing I think you have to look at, Matt, is number one, Steve Wilson doesn't like to talk about the past, but here I'm going to turn back a page to last year. The Merritt Island Mustangs beat the Palm Bay Pirates not only once last year, but beat them twice. Dan Burke doesn't like to lose one football game in a whole season. He certainly doesn't like to lose to Merritt Island twice in 1 year. So I think this has been a lot of chalkboard stuff on the chalkboard this week about what happened last year. Merritt Island beating Palm Bay. Merritt Island came in the number 1 team in the district last year. Palm Bay, they ended up at number 2 because of those 2 losses. or because of one of those losses to Merritt Island. Then later they did it again in the playoffs. Palm Bay beat Astronaut the other night 35-0, and Merritt Island beat Titusville 27-7. Titusville would like to see nothing more happen than Merritt Island beat Palm Bay because Titusville beat Palm Bay a couple weeks ago. So that would keep Titusville in the hunt for a district playoff.
Yeah, how amazing is that, Steve? The fact that we have a chance here to see Palm Bay excluded from the playoffs because of a Titusville run.
Mm-hmm.
I was speaking with Coach Lawrence at the Rockledge Satellite game about this matchup, and he's eagerly watching it. For one night, he'll be splitting loyalties, so to speak, hoping that Merritt Island can pull it off. How surprised are you to see Titusville in this position to benefit from Merritt Island and make the playoffs?
Well, if you'd asked me 6 months ago, I'd have said very surprised. But if you'd asked me after the Cocoa game earlier this year, I'd have said not surprised at all. But it's a huge game. I had a chance to watch Merritt Island play Titusville Thursday night, and the Mustangs were impressive. They not only run the ball well, they throw the ball, play great defense. After the opening drive by the Terriers, they completely shut down Titusville's offense. Yeah, I'd made the comment 2 weeks ago that there may be a three-way tie in that district between Palm Bay, Merritt Island, and Titusville. And I think that will happen if Palm Bay wins the game. If the Mustangs win, they're going to be the district champions.
What's your prediction for this one?
I'm going to still stick with Palm Bay winning the football game. I just think it's going to be very, very close. I love the Mustangs. They are so much better than I thought they were. But I just think I kind of agree with my sidekick over there. I think the Pirates are going to win the game, and we're going to end up with a three-way tie in that district.
Yeah, we very well could. I'm not sure which way to go on this one. I mean, I just saw Palm Bay versus Astronaut on Friday. I was able to see that most of that game. Or no, it was a Thursday night game. I was actually able to see the whole game. That was one of those Thursday night matchups. And from start to finish, Palm Bay clearly had the better talent. So we're going to take a quick break after talking about those two big matchups. When we come back, we'll be talking about some of the Melbourne area teams. Well, we're back to talk about the Cocoa area games and also the Melbourne games. We'll start off with the Thursday night game between Cocoa and Atlantic. Orville, by all accounts, this should be another easy win for the Tigers. Don't you agree?
Yeah, I think you have to think that, Matt. Atlantic put up 40 points last week against Cocoa Beach, and they pitched a shutout, which is good for them. But they won't do that against the Cocoa Tigers, especially Tigers coming in with the last couple wins that they've had. Justin Weaver needs 100 yards this week to get to the 1,000-yard mark. I think the quarterback for the Tigers, Bruce Judson, and the offensive coordinator will give him the ball enough times to pick up that 100 yards so he can get 1,000 for the season.
All right. Steve, what's your outlook for this one?
Ditto. Now, the Tigers are awesome. I had a chance to watch the first half Friday night when they played Space Coast, and they were just incredible. They did nothing that surprised me. I'm sitting there watching. Cocoa has the ball on their own 4-yard line. I'm thinking if somebody takes it all the way, it's a 96-yard run. Jamel Dean on a wide out. It's 96 yards, and they were just dominant. They played a great football game offensively and defensively. They're going to win big and probably shut out Atlantic, but they'll win big Friday night.
All right, next up on the list we have Rockledge at Titusville. I will say I saw a good portion of the Rockledge versus Satellite game, Orville, and Rockledge was able to get that first win and also, just get that streak over with. And I spoke with Coach Leskowski after the game, and you could just tell that throughout that whole stadium there was just a huge burden relieved where they were so anxious to get that first win. He felt really positive about this upcoming matchup with Titusville. Do you think that the Raiders can make this a competitive game against that potent Terrier offense?
Well, I really think that the Rockledge Raiders beating Satellite the other night, it came down to a two-point conversion that failed. Yes, Rockledge got a win, but to get the momentum, I think it would have to carry over a little bit more. They'd have to be a little more dominant on defense and not let them score 2 touchdowns. But they did. But I think Titusville lost to Merritt Island last week. I think they turned things around, and the Titusville Terriers and Wayne Lawrence will get their 3rd win in the district this year.
All right, Steve, what's your take on this one?
Yeah, I agree. I think it's going to be a very close game, though. Titusville just couldn't get anything going against the Mustangs last Thursday. But I think Jaleel Davis can be the difference, although the Mustang defense completely shut him down and stopped him. But don't be surprised if the Raiders win the game. I just, for whatever reason, Titusville looked flat Thursday night, and you attribute a lot of that to how the Mustangs played. But I think to keep my three-way tie playoff scenario alive, the Titusville Terriers have to win the game, and I think they will. I think it'll be close, but I think Titusville will win.
Yeah, I agree. I actually think the Terriers are going to win this one for a specific reason. We talked about him a few days ago, Steve, when you were at that Thursday night game here in Merritt Island. Vance Gullickson has the ability to really boot that ball, and special teams and field position especially is so important in these high school games. He had a 65-yarder the other night. I believe some people reported that it landed just behind us here in Sykes Creek. And against a Raiders offense that can really struggle to move the ball sometimes, I just believe that having the ability to continuously pin them back, even if your own offense is struggling, then I think that'll be too much for the Raiders to overcome. They're going to need a short field to pull off the upset. I just don't see that happening with the special teams unit that Titusville has. Having said that, though, don't be surprised if this is, like you said, much closer than many would expect. Moving on, we have going into the Melbourne area now. Melbourne will be playing Martin County. They'll be going into that game. Orville, after a very valiant but ultimately short effort versus the Viera Hawks. Do you think the Bulldogs bounce back?
Yeah, this is a district contest that the Melbourne Bulldogs really need to try and stay with your number one team in the county, the Viera Hawks. Even though Martin County is at home, I'll pick the Melbourne Bulldogs for the second week in a row. I think Todd Wilson and them will rebound from the loss to Viera. If you break that game down, which we will a little bit later, 14 or 21 to 14, but it could have went either way. If you saw the game, you would know what I mean.
Okay. Yeah, I was over in Rockledge and Satellite game as well. I saw some of the Cocoa game, but I know that Melbourne's got a pretty talented squad. We know Coach Wilson does a great job over there. We should probably say disclosure, no relation. But Steve, do you think that the coach with your namesake is able to turn things around?
Yeah, he's one of the better coaches in Brevard County. They're playing a pretty good football team in Martin County. They beat O'Galley by a touchdown last Friday night. I think the biggest concern, if I was Coach Todd Wilson, is not allowing my kids to look ahead to the Sebastian River game the following week, because that's going to be the one for the district runner-up spot if Melbourne wins the game Friday night, and I think they will. Melbourne, line them up side by side, has more talent than Martin County. They play great defense. They're going to do well, and then their big game will be next Friday against Sebastian.
Okay, and then moving on, another team from the Melbourne area, the Melbourne Central Catholic Hustlers. They'll be traveling to Orlando area to play Orangewood. As I've said before, I hope Orangewood loses everything it's ever involved in. They're our hated arch nemesis from my days at MICS. They used to crush us in several different sports when I was over there. But Orville, Melbourne Central Catholic is one of those teams you can probably tell they're just anxious to get back out there and knock some heads.
Well, they took the record to 6-1, and now they're 2-1 in the district play with a win over district rival Trinity Prep. Trinity Prep now 2-2 in the district, with First Academy setting the top of the division right in front of MCC. This week, Brandon Ziarno, the Space Coast leading passer right now, already with over 1,800 yards in the air. I think he picks up another 200 or 300 yards this week. He'll hit the 2,000-yard mark. I like the Hustlers.
All right, Steve, you think the Hustlers get back to their winning ways?
Yeah, you're going to be smiling after Friday night, Matt. Yeah. MCC is going to crush Orangewood Christian. Won't even be close.
All right, sounds good. When we come back, we'll hit some of the central area teams as well as some of the beachside teams. We're back, and the next game on the list, the next teams on the list are Space Coast and Viera. Space Coast is coming off a really tough loss to the Cocoa Tigers. Viera's on the other side of the coin. My number one team, they had a pretty impressive outing against rival in the Melbourne Bulldogs. Now, Orville, after a game like that Viera had against Melbourne, it's easy to look at them and maybe think that they've essentially punched their playoff ticket. Maybe they'll take it easy this final stretch of the regular season since they don't really have all that extra incentive. With all that in mind, do you think it makes a difference against Space Coast, or do you think the Hawks cruise to a pretty easy win?
Well, one of the things we said about Space Coast was Kingston throws the ball up, Trey Nixon runs under it, and it's a touchdown. The thing about Nixon is you have to hit him at the line and take him out of his rhythm. If you don't do that, and there's not probably, except for a man at Cocoa that Steve loves very well, that's probably the only DB in the county that can stay with Nixon one-on-one. So you're going to have to do a couple things. You're going to have to double team and leave somebody else open, which the Melbourne Bulldogs found out was not the right way to do it. But there's three guys there that the Viera Hawks will run or throw at you, and you got to be able to stop all three of them to be able to beat them. And I don't think Space Coast has enough guys on the defensive side to do that.
Right. Yeah, their defense showed some serious vulnerabilities against the Cocoa Tigers. I don't see much of a reason to think that Viera, with all of its weapons, won't be able to do the same this week.
No, I agree. It's going to be a real challenge for the Vipers. Ironically, they had a chance to take the lead against Cocoa early in the game. They created a turnover about the 20-yard line, attempted a field goal, had it blocked, and the rest is history. Space Coast, not a real bad football team. They did not move the ball against the Tigers, but not a lot of people do that. Viera is so good. We talk about they're such a young school in the overall scheme of things. How long does it take to build a winning tradition? They're 15-2 over the last 2 years. They know how to win football games, and they're going to win. They're going to do well against the Vipers Friday night.
All right, moving along, we have Satellite versus Astronaut. It sounds like a title of a really bad sci-fi movie. So both these teams are coming off of losses. What's your take on this one, Orville?
Well, first thing, you keep saying things like that, you're not going to be allowed in any town in Brevard County. But, Astronaut, they lost to Palm Bay last Thursday night to go 1-6 overall. Satellite lost to Rockledge in a heartbreaker, 14-13. 2-point conversion, was not able to get that done, so they lost 14-13 to Rockledge. For the Scorpions, this game could, for both of them, I think this game could go either way because both teams combined have only won 3 ball games this year. I think Randy Halleck and the Astronaut War Eagles get win number 2.
Okay, Steve, I think that Satellite is that 3-3 record, and I'm sure you're probably going to agree with this, is pretty deceiving. I think the Scorpions have a potent offense that will ultimately prevail in this one.
Yeah, I think the Scorps quarterback Cabrera is very good. A lot of people don't know of him or talk about him, but he likes to run the football and he runs well. And I think he's going to run big against Astronaut Friday night. The War Eagles, for whatever reason, just don't have it this year. Very young. It's just you go through cycles such as that. But Satellite, I think, is better than their record indicates. The only game I go back to is the Mustangs game a few weeks ago where they just didn't show up. But I think the Scorps will defeat Astronaut in a fairly close game Friday night.
Okay, moving along, we have Okeechobee versus the Bayside Bears. Orville, Bayside, they've looked pretty solid this year. How do you see this one?
Well, Bayside, a very hostile place to play. They bring a lot of good fans. They're loud. They're boisterous. Bayside, always a big team that likes to punish you. They try to run the ball. They try to keep the ball on their side of the offensive line. Bayside and Heritage fighting for the top of that district in Class 6A. Okeechobee sitting in the number 3 spot. I think Okeechobee will drop in the standings this week. I think Bayside gets another win.
All right, Steve, what's your outlook?
Yeah, I think they will, but the Bears have to be careful and play solid football. Okeechobee only lost to Heritage by a touchdown. Granted, it was early in the season, but this is one of those Friday nights where there's 3 or 4 games you could call trip-up games, teams that want to look ahead to the following week, and this is one of them because the Bayside Heritage game is such a big matchup. But if Bayside doesn't take care of business against Okeechobee, that's going to lose a lot of its luster the following week. But I think the Bears will do well, maybe a 2-touchdown win.
All right. Coming up, we'll be talking about MICS, Cocoa Beach, O'Galley, and Holy Trinity. Welcome back. We're talking about this week's matchups, and Orville, looking ahead, we have Beacon playing at MICS. Do you think the Cougars can pull off a win at home?
Well, last week we all went on David Nevant's bandwagon. We all picked MIC to win, and David and the Cougars did not deliver. I'm not going to get on his bandwagon this week. They lost to Faith Christian 47-21, and I think they go 1-7. Unfortunately, I'd like to see them win, but I think they go 1-7 after this week.
All right, Steve, what's your take? Do you think they can rebound from that loss? The Cougars are putting up points, but unfortunately the defense is also giving up a lot.
Now, I've been waiting to say this all year. I looked at the schedule at the beginning of the year. Beacon of Hope has no hope.
Okay.
How about that?
That's pretty good.
I like Coach Nevad's Cougars this Friday. I think they're going to walk away with a W.
All right. Well, as always, I'll admit my bias here as an alum, but I think MICS will get their second win of the season. Moving on, we have Cocoa Beach at Orlando Jones. If the Space Coast versus Jones score is any indication, Orville, of what Cocoa Beach may expect from this one? It may be an ugly night for the Minutemen.
Well, I think Orlando Jones to me is a mystery. I picked Orlando Jones to lose to Space Coast because they hadn't won at home all year. Space Coast went over there, and Orlando Jones just dominated in all three phases of the ball game. Cocoa Beach will drop to 0-8 this week. They just seem they can't get anything going in any phase of the game and putting it all together in one spot. I think Orlando Jones gets another district win Friday night.
Yeah, I agree. Steve, is that your outlook?
Yeah, it'll be a big win for the Jones Tigers. If you look at their schedule, they have played some pretty good football teams this year, so their record is deceiving. Their big game will be the following week when they play Cocoa for the district championship. Whoever wins that game will be district champs. The loser will be runner-up. Jones has to take care of business Friday night against Cocoa Beach, but unfortunately for the Minutemen, they're going to do that.
Yeah, I agree. And moving on, we have Sebastian at O'Galley. Orville, the Commodores, they really hit a speed bump versus Viera a couple weeks ago. Do you think they bounce back versus Sebastian?
Well, I don't, Matt, really. Sebastian River Sharks were off last week. They had a week to prepare. O'Galley lost a district rival, Martin County, which is also a district rival to Sebastian River. The Sharks get a district win number 2 this week over the O'Galley Commodores to stay in a playoff hunt. I'm going to take the Sebastian River Sharks.
All right, Steve, are you picking the team just below the border or just above it?
Well, I had a chance. I wasn't able to attend the game Friday night, the Friday night locker room game of the week, but I listened to it on the internet, and I know Orville talked to J.C. Meyerholtz, the voice of the Sharks from Sebastian River. And J.C. and I talked prior to the start of the season, and he thought they were going to be so young that they were a year or two away. But they've lost 3 games to Viera, to Bayside, and Vero Beach. They've lost to 3 really good football teams. I think the Sebastian River Sharks are going to win big, and then they'll have their showdown the following Friday against Melbourne.
That game's at O'Galley, and I've consulted my map this week, so Sebastian will be going.
South of here.
That's right. It's south of here, but Sebastian will be going north on US 1.
There you go.
And last but not least, gentlemen, we have Holy Trinity, and they'll be playing First Academy in Orlando. Orville, we had the chance to see, I believe it was First Academy and MCC just a couple weeks ago. It's going to be a tall order for Nate Hooks and his squad to go in there and knock off First Academy, is it not?
Well, as much as I like Nate Hook, I like the idea that he left a Titusville team to go and take over as a head coach at such a young age. Mm-hmm. He's bringing a lot of enthusiasm to that program. We know he's a strength guy. We know he's a conditioning guy. But I just don't think that Holy Trinity is ready to run with First Academy. MCC putting 40, 45 points on the board every game, and First Academy just took all of that away. So First Academy should have a very easy week this week. I hate to say that because I think Nate Hooks is going to do wonders there if they let him stay for a while. And I think that Holy Trinity will drop this one.
Yeah, Steve, as Orville said, the future's bright for this Holy Trinity team, but this may be one of those tough weeks for them. Right.
Yeah, the First Academy runs the ball so well. We saw how effectively they ran the ball against MCC. Had a chance to talk to Coach Hooks Thursday night, and he's visited with some of the Brevard County coaches asking him, how do you stop the run? How do you do that? He talked to one coach in particular. He said, technically, this is how you do it. He said, but you still have to have the personnel to make it happen. Right. And I don't know that the Holy Trinity Tigers have the personnel this year. First Academy, they're going to be their district champions, and they're going to win big.
All right, well, that concludes our previews for this week. Up next is the most controversial segment of the show, our top 5. Or as we like to say, Steve's top, 50?
12, yeah, whatever.
All right. All right, now it's time for our top 5 list of the week. I'll start off with mine. I have the Palm Bay Pirates at number 5. They've had a couple ups and downs, including a loss to Titusville, but that was a much better Titusville than any of us anticipated. They looked really sharp this week against Astronaut, and Sakai Lindsay, to me, appears to be one of the most talented running backs in the county. Just below them, I have a new team in my top 5 this week. At number 4, I have the Meriden Mustangs. That's the last team in the county I would want to be playing right now. I think Palm Bay is going to have a very tough matchup versus the Mustangs. They have solid special teams, and now the offense is starting to click. Coach McLean seems to finally have found his groove with this squad. Number 3, I have the Heritage Panthers. Gaines is up there with Lindsay as one of the most talented just overall athletes, I think, in the county. And I've just been impressed by their overall strength they've shown this year. Number 2, the Cocoa Tigers. They they looked great against Space Coast on Friday night. That was arguably their best offensive showing of the season. Number 1, I still have the Viera Hawks. They're coming off a big win versus Melbourne. I know the Hawks always ruffle the feathers of my 2 colleagues here, but I just, again, feel like looking at them just in all 3 phases of the game. They, to me, appear to be the sharpest thus far this season. I wish we could see Viera take on Cocoa, but that won't happen, and we just have to wonder, I guess. But Orville, I'll turn it over to you.
Well, I'll take my top 5 to the 1, just like you did. Merritt Island, for me, goes into the top 5 spot, making my top 5 for the first time of the year. I like what they're doing, and like you said, I wouldn't want to go into Merritt Island and play them right now. They're playing very well on all 3 phases of the game. Number 4, I have Heritage Panthers. I moved them up from my number 5 spot last week. So the Heritage Panthers set at number 4. Number 3, I had Palm Bay last week. I leave Dan Burke and the Pirates there. I think they're still a solid number 3 team, excuse me, in the county. At number 2, I have your number 1, Viera Hawks. Now, if I can take a second, last week on the radio, we did that, Joe, Melbourne and Viera, and the head coach of the Viera Hawks called me out on the radio for picking the Viera Hawks to lose that game to the Melbourne Bulldogs. Now, let me really quick explain to you why I did that. The week before, as you remember, 3 weeks ago, I was the one that said, I think the Viera Hawks will go 10-0. They'll be the first time in school history to do that. They'll be the first time in school history for them to win a district championship and the first time to go into the playoffs. Until Melbourne beat Bayside, right. I believe that. But when Melbourne beat Bayside after 3 tough turnovers and still on defense, were able to come back and beat the Bayside Bears, which was the 3rd team that Melbourne beat that came in undefeated, I changed my mind. Now, after Friday night, of course, hindsight is very easy to say. But the same thing happened to the Viera Hawks. The first play from scrimmage, they fumbled the ball. Melbourne got it. Tried a 32-yard Omar Rojas field goal. It failed. Just a few plays later, Melbourne got the ball again inside the 20 on a 4th and 7. Instead of going for a Rojas field goal, they decided to run it. They went 4th and 3. They gave the ball back. 10 points, I think, or 14 points, I think, left on the field in the first quarter. Okay. We all talk about Viera offense, but really Viera defense was the one that won that ball game for them because they stopped they stopped Melbourne both times when Melbourne was inside the 20. How did they win? A double reverse pass to the end zone for a touchdown and a fake field goal and a run into the touchdown. So they had to go, which there's nothing wrong with that. Right. You practice that all year, like Todd Wilson says, to use one time in the season. They used them both against Melbourne, and that's why they won. And I think Viera is stuck at number 2. They're a solid team. I go back to my 3-week prediction of 3 weeks ago. They'll run out. They'll win the district. They'll have their first playoff game. And 3 words, Cocoa, number 1.
All right. Steve, I know you typically have a top 15. I don't know if we have enough film left in the camera, or enough memory card space, I should say. So anyway, we'll start with Steve, and hopefully we don't run out of our time.
All right, I have a top 9. Actually, I have a top 5 with 4 honorable mention teams. The 4 honorable mention.
He should be a politician.
In no particular order, the Titusville Terriers, I'm dropping them out of the top 5 because of their loss to the Mustangs. The Bayside Bears, still a very, very good football team, but I have them knocking on the door of the top 5. The Melbourne Bulldogs, I love the way they play defense and move the ball, but I have them not quite inside the top 5 at this point. The MCC Hustlers, all they do is score points. So those are my honorable mention teams knocking at the door. Number 5. The Merritt Island Mustangs have entered my top 5. Very impressive win against the Terriers Friday night and Thursday in all phases of the game. The Palm Bay Pirates I still like, and I think Palm Bay will beat Merritt Island Friday night. I have the Pirates at number 4. Number 3, the Heritage Panthers, basically Josh Gange, Deshaun Mills, LeCedric King, the three-headed monster running attack of the Panthers. They're going to run over a lot of teams. Top 1 and top 2, Matt O'Hearn. How you saw the Tigers from Cocoa play Friday night. I was standing next to you. How can you not say they're the best team in the county? And don't answer it. It's a rhetorical question. But Viera, a very solid football team. They're number 2. The Tigers are still number 1.
All right, well, there you have it, our top 5 picks for the week. Always a fun time. And don't forget, the Friday night locker room game of the week will be at Heritage High School. I think you have to pack a lunch to get down there. Quite a drive.
With Steve, that's an overnight trip, so we'll all have suitcases in the back of the van, but we will get there.
Right. Hopefully no flat tires this time.
Well, yeah, that's true.
All right, well, it's been a pleasure, and we hope to see you on the sidelines this Friday. For Matt O'Hearn, Orville, and Steve, we look forward to seeing you.